Hello, welcome to this lesson on LO6.2 from the Cambridge Nationals Level 1 to 2 in Information Technologies, Part 3. So in this section we've got these 6 topics to look at. Last lesson we looked at the top 3. Today we're going to look at these 2, the impact of distributing the information and the distribution channel. First one is quite a short section. So it says that we've got to consider the impact of distributing information. And in the specification it actually says what impact is to be achieved from distributing information. Now this is quite a short section, but basically I just want to talk about 2 points. I want you to think about when you're distributing your information, do you want it to have more of an emotional impact or more of a fact-based impact where what you're really trying to get across is numbers and figures and facts. So if you want an emotional, if you want your information to be have an emotional impact, you're going to be using a lot more videos, images, colors and music maybe. And if you want it to be factual, you're going to be using a lot more charts, graphs, lists and diagrams. These are obviously in a very general, there can be crossover between these 2, but as a general rule you want to be thinking about what impact are you trying to have on the audience when you distribute your information. So for example, I've just got a couple of examples here. NSPCC, so Protection of Children. This is a charity for protection of children. So as you can see on their website, I've just cut off the first few images, or the first few sections of their website. There's not much on here at all, but there is a huge image here, another one here. It's very minimal in that sense because they're trying to have an emotional impact on you by presenting you with images that might stir some empathy in you. And this video, we won't watch it, but it's the woman talking about her work at NSPCC. So that's what I mean by thinking about what kind of impact you have. Emotional impact, images and videos and that kind of thing are going to have a greater impact. If we want just facts and figures, then graphs with very limited color here. There's certainly not going to be any music. Videos wouldn't really be appropriate for giving this information because people want to know facts and figures on a graph, how it's looking, is it going up, down, and there's a lot of information there. This is a better way to present this. And then you've got somewhere in the middle, like the weather. Whether you're going to want numbers, graphs to see how it changes through the day, but pictures as well is going to be useful because instead of reading, you don't want to read the weather report in a text document, for example. You want to just be able to see it on the page very quickly like that. The 5th section in this unit is called Selecting How Information is Shared Across Distribution Channels by People and Businesses. So let's just talk about what a distribution channel is. A distribution channel is whatever method it is that you're using to share information between people, organizations or businesses. So the main ones we're going to focus on are face-to-face, messaging services, websites, VoIP, multimedia, cloud-based and mobile apps. There's going to be some crossover in between these. I think they got a bit confused when they were writing this specification about what was what, because you will see that websites and multimedia, for example, could probably go together. But let's just go through this, do it as they've done it in the specification. So we won't bother with face-to-face. That's fairly obvious what face-to-face communication is. But let's first of all talk about messaging services. Okay, first of all we have email. So we all know what an email is. It's an electronic mail that's sent between people or groups of people, and you can attach files to it. Email can be sent from a range of devices such as laptop, tablets or smartphones, as long as there's a connection to the internet. Social media. So LinkedIn is the first one they list. LinkedIn is a website that, let me show you what it is. So LinkedIn is basically a way for people to advertise who they are, what their skills are in a work context. So if I want to find a person, type in John Smith. So you'll get a whole list of people called John Smith from around the world. Obviously this isn't very specific, you can narrow down the search, but it basically allows people to tell potential employers or educational institutions or something like that about themselves, what jobs they've had in the past, where they were educated, those kinds of things. iMessage, that's just text messages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. So they're all ways of sending messages between people having a kind of discussion online, you all kind of know what social media is. In terms of a business situation, a business may have a page on social media that allows posts to be made, videos to be uploaded, and members to react by posting comments, by liking or disliking posts, or sharing links about the business. Business can use its social media page to keep customers and others interested and up to date. So let's have a look at the social media of a business. So here, for example, we have the Twitter account of KFC. So they're using it to post about, well, I guess this is about the COVID crisis, but it's a way for businesses to update their customers, and they call it engagement as well, where they get people excited about their branding and that kind of thing. Internal messaging services. So these are usually meant for sort of messaging between a group of people. So they were kind of unclear in the specification what they meant by this, but they've given Moodle, they call it an internal messaging service. Moodle, to my understanding, I've never used it, but Moodle seems to be an educational platform, a bit like Google Classroom, where you can send messages to students, they can submit work, and you can have discussions about the work. So I'm not really entirely sure why they've called it an internal messaging service, but I guess it's because it's closed unless it's to a certain group of people who have registered to be in that group, I suppose. And then a new alternative, which they don't mention, but I imagine they might mention in the future, is Slack. Slack is a very popular system used by lots of businesses. I'm going to show you a video about Slack because I think that's important at the moment.
Slack is where work happens. It's a new layer of technology that brings together people, applications, and data, and it's replacing email around the world. The easiest way to understand it is that Slack replaces email inside your company. It's enormously important, but inside of a company, it works so poorly. Imagine a 10,000 person company. On average, each person sends 30 emails a day. That's 300,000 emails every day. But consider things from one individual's perspective. Today, she got 23 emails. That's not even 1/100% of all the communication that happened inside the company. Maybe someone else gets 57 emails. That's still minuscule as a percentage of all the messages that may be relevant to that person. But the rest is completely locked away and only accessible if another human being manually sends it to them. And even that is one message at a time. You have these enormous flows of critical information coursing through the organization. But each person only has this tiny view. Their inboxes are partial and fragmented and radically incomplete. And every single view, the primary window people have to what's going on across the company, every single view is unique. This is nuts. And I guarantee you we will look back at this moment in history, shaking our heads and wondering how we ever dealt with it. So what's the alternative? Well, first, let's turn the email into messages. And now, rather than inboxes, we're going to organize those messages in channels. Those channels can correspond to anything. Projects, teams, planning sprints, office locations, business units, literally anything that is happening across the company. Moving the conversations to channels created a huge increase in the return on the communication. The whole team is in the channel, and anytime anyone on the team has an update or a question or a document to share, they just put it into the channel. They type it up once and hit send once, and everyone who needs to know now or in the future is in the loop. So that's why you switch. It makes communication better, collaboration easier, and agility something you can more readily achieve. From inboxes to channels. It's a movement from an individual-first approach to communication to one that puts the team or the organization first. It's so simple, but we believe that the advantages are so great that this shift is inevitable. We believe that every organization will switch to Slack or something like it.
The great enemy of writing.
Now, traditionally, educators and people that write exam courses are usually a little bit behind the most modern movements in technology. So this course was written about 3 years ago. I think Slack has become particularly popular in that time. So it is something that could come up in the future that's worth bearing in mind. Now, the next thing they have is websites. If you look down that list there, there's not a huge amount of distinction between those things because some of those things are websites, like a blog and a vlog would be part of an internet site. So I'm not entirely sure why they felt they needed to show those things as distinct, but we'll see. Okay, so basically a blog is like a website run by one person or a group of people about one specific issue usually. Blog was originally like a diary entry, but now it's more like a collection of articles about a specific thing. So if we look at an example of a blog, lots of information about the technology industry basically. So if you wanted to keep up to date, you might read their articles so you knew what was going on. Now a vlog, the next thing we looked at, is, it's sounds kind of similar, but in practice they're usually quite different. A vlog video, to be engaging, they're usually more fast-paced and maybe aimed at a slightly different audience. So typical vlogs, for example, might be something like Linus Tech Tips on YouTube, which you've all seen. If not, it's more like this. So they'll be discussing an issue, usually in a kind of fun way, but to get at an important point usually.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh my God! You're a freaking maniac!
Did I make it? What's actually better for video editing, Mac or PC? To find out, we are going to be pitting the one and only...
Okay, so that's a typical vlog. You've all seen vlogs before. But the presentation style is very different than just reading this, potentially the same information in an article with words. I mean, I know I personally prefer to get my information from vlogs because it's more engaging. But everyone has their preferences, and that's worth bearing in mind when you're thinking about this course. Intranet, which is generally kind of a system of computers joined together inside an organization that run together and don't really have, well, they can interact with the outside world, but the intranet is referring to a group of computers that are internal to an organization usually. So for example, in school, when you're saving your work on the school servers, in the old days, nowadays you can access that from an external place, but in the old days you'd kind of consider that intranet because it's all connected inside, but without any access from the outside. Internet site and an internal website. I've never encountered an internal website before. I'm not entirely sure why they've stuck that in the course. But an internet site, we all know what an internet site is. Very powerful for distributing information. Let's have a quick look at. We all know what a website is, but this is the gov.uk website. Huge amount of information on here, and it's worth bearing in mind when you have a huge amount of information that people need to access. You can't waste space on images and all that emotional thing, all those emotional touches we were talking about earlier. So this is very straightforward because people do not want to have to search around and navigate through pictures to find the information they need. So this is a very effective website for doing that. To go back to the intranet point, just want to tell you what it says in one source I have here. It says an intranet is a private network that is accessible only to those who have login or access details. An intranet can provide information to authorized users that is not available to those without access details. So a school system would be a classic example of an intranet. An intranet can also enable an internal website to be created and used by a business. The web pages on the internal website can be used to distribute information, provide links to information or an internal blog, and allow files to be downloaded. So that's kind of similar there with Slack, as we were talking earlier. I think people probably would move away from intranet websites. I've never encountered one myself. Okay, next up is VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol. Now, you can use a phone like shown on the screen there to make a VoIP call. You all know what. You probably, some of you may not even have a house phone anymore, but landlines, regular house phones connect to a landline, which then connects to a sensor, which then sends your voice to someone else's phone, basically, or electronic signal of your voice to somebody else's phone, and it requires a whole different network of cabling. But people decided a few years ago, well, we don't really need that. If we've got internet in every house, we can use the internet connections to send to make that same call. So VoIP was developed for that reason. I'm going to show you a video to explain this slightly better than I have.
Prove customer satisfaction, increase productivity, save money. It's not very often businesses have the opportunity to do all three at once. But that's exactly what a modern phone system can do for your business. With VoIP, or Voice over Internet Protocol, voice information is sent digitally using the same networks that you already use for the internet. In bypassing conventional phone lines, basic call costs are vastly reduced, often by as much as 40% for regular calls, and even more for international calls. You can also reduce the number of physical lines needed, as each employee can have their own virtual extension. These can be reached on any connected devices, from office desk phones to smartphones, so all of you can be kept in the loop no matter where you are. There's no more reliance on bulky hardware units. Now the phone system is managed by your service provider and hosted in the cloud. It's delivered to your business as an ongoing service on a no tie-in, rolling month-to-month contract, meaning you're never caught out with unexpected charges. These days, even the smallest businesses can afford to use state-of-the-art office communication features. Useful features include auto attendance, automatic call transfer and call forwarding, voicemail to email transcriptions. All of these make your office communications faster and more flexible than ever before. You can keep firmly in control of these services using a simple on-screen dashboard accessible from anywhere with your PC or mobile device. You can quickly add users or features and see detailed usage reports to help you save even more. Cloud phone systems are reliable and secure, with providers employing dedicated teams to ensure excellent and uninterrupted service. Your new system can be set up in hours, and you can keep your existing numbers or add new ones. It's up to you.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what VoIP is. To cut a very long story short, it's basically taking a phone call and using the internet to make that phone call rather than a dedicated sort of landline situation. To talk about some advantages there about things like being able to turn text to voice to text. I was going to read some things from the textbook. VoIP can also be used with video calling using a webcam. There are programs that can be downloaded, usually for free, that allow calls to be made to anyone else who has a program installed. Some providers require a subscription to use the service, while others charge on a call-by-call basis. Examples of providers include Skype and Link. So I personally had never heard of Link before. So it says Skype and Link, but I think the massive one that's just emerged in the current climate is actually Zoom, is what everyone is using currently, and not many people are continuing with Skype for no particular reason that I can think of. But there you go. And I've certainly never heard of Link in the first place. But those are associated with the VoIP. We've actually got two birds with one stone here. We've actually got the blog for the Zoom company themselves. I'm going to get rid of this. So this is basically them discussing how, VoIP, which they are essentially a VoIP service. Okay, next up he wants us to talk about multimedia. Now, multimedia basically means a mixture of different elements, with usually text, sound, video, and graphics, and they can be combined together to great effect. For example, this particular presentation video I'm giving you is not a great example of multimedia, because it's either just my voice and a static screen or video. I mean, I've tried to throw a few videos in to make it more interesting, and hopefully those bits are slightly more interesting. But a really well produced multimedia clip can be very powerful. Let me show you a couple of examples. So a website might be multimedia. So a lot of the sort of educational websites you use have multimedia elements. Let me go, where was I going? So for example, Udemy, for example, I can't get into it because they're not paid, but it's courses, it's going to be full of texts, videos, and so on. Not a great example, but the idea is that it's multimedia because it has videos and text to help you study. Alternatively, a multimedia video, where did I have it? So this is a very good channel called Crash Course, and they do all kinds of things to do with education.
Hi, I'm Deboki Chakravarti.
So you've got some basic video there, but then they've mixed in some...
It's for lab partner to pass the dichloromethane,
graphics.
And they hand us a bottle labeled methylene chloride.
And I mean, we've all seen this before. We've all seen a video with multimedia in it.
And cinnamaldehyde is isolated from cinnamon.
So text and graphics to make it
ether,
easy to understand.
Acetone, and acetic acid are common names too. While some common names might sound fun.
So that's a very good multimedia an example of a good multimedia video, because it has all of those elements combined together. Generally speaking, the an increased level of multimedia, it means people are going to be able to engage with it more easily, because so much information we have to take in. If you can combine it in lots of different ways, unique ways, then it's going to be more engaging than your standard just talking over a PowerPoint. Okay, I want to briefly say that a web conference, so when lots of people meet over the web on something like Zoom, is essentially multimedia, because it involves images, sounds, and so you would need, it says in the textbook, you'd need a webcam, speakers, and a microphone to conduct a web conference with multimedia, although that's not really a usual problem because most of those are included on a standard laptop. But it does also say, you may well be tested in an exam, it will say, what do you need to be able to do a web conference? And you'll also need a stable internet connection. That's one of the things they like to point out, and so please remember that. Cloud-based distribution methods are when you use something like OneDrive or Google Drive, which is basically like a virtual hard drive somewhere out on the internet, basically, which we call the cloud, where files are stored. Now, you've all probably used these before. I hope you've all been using them to access your work. So, for example, this is cloud-based storage, because no one person is storing this file on their computer as such. I mean, it is stored somewhere, but it's shared between everyone on this cloud-based storage device, the OneDrive or Google Drive, if you have that. And the beauty of this is if you have an account, it then links up with other programs. So I have this SketchUp program for making 3D models. So if I now save this, it's saving it to my cloud, it's saving it to my Google Drive. No, not my Google Drive, sorry, my Microsoft Drive. And so if I shut down this computer I'm currently working on, traveled around to the other side of the world, and then loaded this website up, I could still get to my work because it's all cloud-based, it's all stored on the cloud. Something to bear in mind when you are storing things on the cloud is, although you may have a very good computer with very good internet access, your users may not. So uploading huge files that they then need to download may not be the most appropriate method of communicating with them. So, for example, this video, if I save a video, put it on the cloud, that's potentially an over 1 gigabyte file you'll need to download in one go before you can start watching it. Whereas if I upload it to somewhere like YouTube, you can stream it, which means you don't need to download it all in one chunk before you can start watching it. So there's pros and cons of using a cloud-based to distribute information. One of which is you should definitely consider the size of the file that you are saving to the cloud, and how your users are going to be able to access that.
The cloud. Or more importantly, where does all of our stuff go? Cloud storage is essentially a virtual locker where you can remotely stash any of your data. So are all of those cat photos just hanging around up in the sky? Not quite. When you upload a file to a cloud-based service like Google Drive or iCloud, that file gets copied over the internet into a data server. Database servers are actual physical places where companies store your files on multiple hard drives. Most companies will have hundreds of these servers, known as server farms, spanning across multiple locations. So if one happens to get hit by an asteroid, you won't lose your data because it'll be backed up at another location. This is referred to as redundancy, and it keeps your data safe from being lost. Chances are you're already utilizing cloud computing if you use services like Gmail, which connects to Google Drive. Storage on Google Drive starts you at 15 gigabytes for free, but can be increased to as high as 30 terabytes for $300 a month. Services like iCloud, Dropbox, and Microsoft OneDrive offer similar monthly fees for higher storage capabilities. One huge benefit of cloud computing is that you can access data on any internet-capable device. And these days, what isn't connected to the internet, am I right? Also, remember a couple episodes ago when my computer exploded from that secret message I got?
Hello, Armand. This message will self-destruct.
Without the cloud, I would have lost all my files. Luckily, I backed up my hard drive the night before and was able to restore everything. Oh. Oh. This is getting really expensive. Of course, not everything is perfect, and there have been some problems with cloud storage in the past. In August 2014, a major iCloud hack led to the leaks of hundreds of private photos from various celebrities. Also, who could forget? However, cloud computing can be a great solution for freeing up space on your device, creating a seamless way to access your files, and a pretty good safeguard from the total destruction of your hardware.
Okay, finally, mobile apps as a way of distributing information. Now, you all have apps. You're probably using one within the last minute, I would imagine. An app can do any number of things. It can be a YouTube app to show you a video. It could be a fitness app to measure your steps. It could be a weather app to tell you the weather. It could be a banking app to help you get access to your financial information. But most interestingly to me is this new COVID app to help us track the spread of the COVID virus, because it's going to come up later in the course about how big data is used, or how data is used to make big decisions. So apps can do all kinds of things, and I think you're probably already aware of that. But just to mention a few other examples, it could be used to connect to other devices. It could be used to connect your phone to other devices around your house. For example, to control the heating while you're away from the house. And that kind of thing, to turn the lights on and off, to monitor video, to monitor CCTV in your home. There's many things that apps can do from your phone. And I think we are going to leave today's lesson there. Please check out the file in the OneDrive for work to do with this